So welcome everybody to our keynote panel. We are closing up Automation Dreaming Day 2, and it has been amazing having all of you join us so far. So I'm particularly excited about this panel with Christie hosting us, and then we've got Silvia, Karat, and Johann with us too. So Christie, I'm going to hand it over to you at this point.
Thank you very much, Vicki. I am so excited to be here. A huge welcome to all of you who have joined us today for the very first Automation Dreamin conference. This is incredible. I'm really pleased to be here with you. And I want to thank all the organizers for their hard work in putting together this event. So Vicki and Mark, well done. Congratulations. You did it. It's been great. Really proud of you. Automation is a super hot topic, and I'm really excited that there's an entire conference dedicated to just this subject. So I hope that with each session that you've been attending, you've been able to learn and grow. Vicki, if you could go to the second slide for me, please. Thank you. I'm really incredibly lucky to have been able to assemble a crack panel of experts who are going to share their insights and experiences with all of you, with the goal of teaching you to create and deliver successful projects through collaboration and communication. Because in today's virtual world, talking to each other is more important than ever. And we need to understand the scope of the project. But more than that, we need to invite everyone in the project who's a part of that team into the room to listen, share, and advise. But we all know that translation issues do occur. And this is especially true between different persona who might work on a project: the business analyst, the admin, the developer, the architect. So in the spirit of transparency and collaboration, our experts are going to share their knowledge with you on how to achieve a successful project by really understanding each other. So I want to take a moment so that each of our experts here can introduce themselves and can also explain to us which persona they're going to be representing throughout our panel. So Silvia, can we start with you?
Of course. First of all, thank you very much for having me. As you can tell, I'm Italian. I'm a mom of 3, and I've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem since following a career transition. I'm 5-time Salesforce certified, and I am proud winner of the London Admin Champions Award 2022. And in my everyday job, I am systems manager at Advice UK, which means that I am responsible for the digital transformation of the overall organization, and I manage our Salesforce team. For the purpose of this panel, I represent the admin/BA, and I like for you to think of me as the strict parent, the loving but very strict parent who loves her org as her own child and wants the best for her org, worries about it all the times. I am the one that always asks the why, what is the purpose of this, who's going to benefit from this, what is the business problem we're trying to resolve with this project, how are we going to document this? And one question that I often ask is, if it goes wrong, how are we going to be able to revert this?
Perfect. Thank you, Silvia. That was great. Karat, can we go to you next?
Sure. I'll also start off with thanking all of you for having me here. It's an incredible for me. So I am Karat. I am joining in from Islamabad, Pakistan. I am quite passionate about the local community and the global community as well. On my day job, I work as a senior application engineer, which basically means that I am responsible for designing and implementing different automations and developing solutions for our team. Other than that, I am also the co-founder of Pakistan Dreaming, which happened earlier this year. And today, for this panel, I'll be representing the developer persona. And generally, what I'm most excited about is developing things and saving time and saving clicks for everybody on the team. Happy users is it really the goal. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Johann, how about you?
Thank you for having me. I feel honored to be on this panel with such an elaborate team. I'm an architect. I've been doing admin, development, and architect work on the Salesforce platform for many years. I'm currently working as a freelance architect and architect coach. Today's persona I will represent is the architect who comes up with this fancy PowerPoints, these fancy definitions, who might or might not help the project to scale and deliver long-term value for the customer and the user.
Excellent. Okay, that is, you see why I assembled this amazing panel. They're all incredible. So everybody, thank you so much for being here. So I have some questions prepared, and I'm going to go through those and give each one of our panelists a chance to answer or provide insight. And then we are going to save 2 or 3 minutes at the end for any questions from our audience. So please do feel free to pop them into the chat. Vicky's going to be monitoring that, and she will come off of mute and walk us through any questions that you've got for us. So thank you in advance for contributing to our panel. So our first question today, oh no, Vicky, you can go back to the headshot slide. Thank you very much. So our first question today is for all of our panelists again. Can you share an example of an automation project where collaboration either did or could have generated the best result? So, Kuret, can we start with you, please?
Sure. So one of the examples that comes to my mind at the moment is that we were working on a project, again, implementing an automation where multiple teams are working together. So the BAs, developers, and other teams as well. So we documented the whole scope of the automation, went ahead with the documentation and then implementing it. But during the implementation of this project, some things has to change, shift a little bit, which changed the scope of how this automation would have been tested. So it's increased the scope with, in addition to some other automations that were there. So that thing was documented, but that was not communicated enough for the team to take notice and then update the scope of the testing. So we ended up delivering that automation, but we missed out a few bits and pieces in terms of testing, which came out afterwards with the users. So considering this scenario, if although the changes were documented but not communicated enough, so if there was enough communication within the developers and the team who was testing and the BAs as well, we would have been able to figure out it earlier before we delivered it. So if we had better communication in place, along with the documentation, we could have saved the additional time and the hassle for the users eventually.
That's a good lesson learned, isn't it, Kuret? That was a really nice way you told that story, actually. Thank you very much. Johann, can you contribute something as well? Oh, you're on mute, Johann. Try again.
I also have an example where something happened which could have been improved. In this case, it was my mistake. The task was to design and architect a complex UI element, which pulled together data from many different objects and had complex buttons and filterings, very Lightning Web Component, JavaScript heavy. While the concept and the UI itself worked well, I missed to talk to developers to get a better understanding of the underlying technical challenges. So the developers went ahead and implemented the architecture as I proposed it. And only months later, we noticed that it had a really heavy impact on the performance of our users, which took us another few weeks to actually figure out the problem and then even more time to fix the problem. So we had months and months of bad performance just because I didn't ask developers for their input on the technical implications of this UI element.
I have so many things that I could say there, but I'll just leave it with this statement. Developers have something to say too, right? And that's how projects go wrong, because you ask someone to build something and you tell them that it needs to be go through a door, and they build you a round table, but really you needed a rectangle shaped table, right? And it's just communication. Thank you, Johann. That was really brilliant. Now, Silvia, I know that you feel very passionately. You have some examples of this going on right now in your work day, and we are going to save the names to protect the innocent, right? We talked about that earlier. So, can you please share some experience that you've had?
Yes. So I work in a small team, so I have to say that collaboration and communication, of course, is so much easier when you work in a small team. We have gone live with an integration project this week, and it took a few years for the project to actually start. There was a lot of expectations for the project to happen and to be successful. The team that was involved was not very happy for this project to happen. The decision was made by senior leadership. The project had to happen, and I was tasked with just making it happen. I have an incredible team with my Salesforce administrator, Pooja, and our business analyst, Gemma. They're both here. Thank you very much for supporting us today. And Gemma started with doing her BA work, mapping the process, but in the end, it was really the delivery fell under the responsibility of the Salesforce administrator. We have gone live. The project the project is successful. And what is crazy is that all the users can see is a checkbox. There's all sorts of things going on, but all the user sees that tiny checkbox that makes all the financial documents go from one system, from Salesforce, to another system. What is interesting to collaboration and communication is that we had envisaged a result at the beginning of this project, and what we ended up with is a completely different result. And don't get me wrong, it's a good result, but the reason why it is a good result, it's because of the collaboration and the communication between all the major stakeholders. And the most important stakeholder was the users. The users were the one that led us to change what we thought, this is the right solution, we're gonna go with this. And we're like, no, this is not gonna work for them. So everybody in our own personas had to adapt to their requests to make this a success.
Right. And that's really interesting that you always kept that focus on the user, so that could change and shape the project team and the deliverables. But sometimes users don't know what they want, right? Or they have a particular problem that they know needs to be solved, but they have no idea how to go about it, whether it requires an architect or a developer or an admin or an analyst. And in that particular case, then it's a matter of communicating really well with your user, right? And gathering perhaps insights from other project team members. Johann, have you had an experience like that? Oh, you're on mute, Johann.
I would extend as a stakeholder, this is an example where I bring, is even people who are not end users, but even managers or people who have to basically pay the project or pay the long term. Again, it was a mistake I made, which could have been improved by, I came up with a great solution, but I didn't ask the main stakeholder, in this case, the team lead of the users, for long-term support and long-term maintenance. While the idea sounded really great on paper, I did not communicate enough across the different domains to understand the long-term maintenance plan for this particular feature. Another feature which was less expensive in maintenance was a way better fit. It was not as fancy, I didn't like it as much, but if I would have talked earlier to the stakeholder, or in this case, which is also kind of a user, I could have had a better solution.
Got it. Thank you very much. Never mind the background. That was brilliant. I was wondering, because we started off with a question of when you saw something, or you experienced a project where it either did go well or it could have gone better, right? And all of you have given me an example of that today. And I'm wondering, does that sit with you now when you go into a project? Does that change your perspective when it comes to collaboration and communication because you had this scenario in your past experience? And if so, how does it change how you interact with the rest of the project team? Silvia, can we start with you?
What is changed is the fact that I now want to make sure that at the beginning of each project, we know who are all the project people involved in the project, and each of us has to have roles and responsibilities. Because otherwise collaboration doesn't work, because you just assume somebody's gonna do something and actually they don't, because you haven't had that clear sets of roles and responsibilities set from the start. So for me, this is the key.
And that is incredibly important. Absolutely. Kura, do you do the same on your projects now? The roles and responsibilities outlined?
Yeah, it's always good to start off with responsibilities, so there is no doubt within the team who is managing and responsible for what part of it. And also what the thing I really talked about where the scope changed, it was documented but not communicated enough. So another thing that came out of that was that if two people are working together, I can provide all the details on the paper or maybe in a record somewhere, but somebody who is, reading through it, understanding it, the understanding could be in a lot of different ways. So it's good to have it documented, but it's even more important communication about it. For example, over a call where you can have a to and fro conversation. So the understanding really is what it's intended to be instead of understanding something completely different out of it. So more communication along with the documentation is something different I do going forward with for that.
That's super interesting, Kura. I was just wondering, something you feel that you have to constantly revisit, or is it once it's set out at the, for example, the beginning of the project, everybody's pretty clear and you don't need to go back to that? Or do you have to kind of revisit it?
I think I would say it needs revisiting for the fact that once you are working on a problem, you come up with a solution. As Johann earlier said, that things can change in terms of, for example, you have proposed that this solution could look this way, but there could be other developer considerations or architectural consideration, and things can change. So whenever that happens, it's good to have a resync, communication or a call where we can, again, everybody can be on the same page. But then again, does it mean what the frequency of it would be? What kind of changes would warrant for that kind of communication can be worked on so we are not overdoing it either.
Right. Gotcha. Johann, do you have anything to add there?
Now, I think I have to revisit my strategy on how to communicate what I just learned from the other two, to how I communicate architecture decision. But I think it could make sense that I communicate that not only at the beginning, but on a regular basis to the whole team to refresh on everybody's mind. There was maybe changes in between. I think, thanks for the heads up there. I think I should re-communicate it on a regular basis.
That's excellent. Okay, we're all learning today. And Silvia, do you, because this is such a big passionate subject of yours, in particular roles and responsibilities, do you feel the need to revisit it once in a while? And also, do you make sure that those listings are kind of available for everybody to go and look at? Do you kind of like, when you tell your children to pick up their clothes 3 times and they still don't, do you put it on the chore chart and just point to the chart every once in a while?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But I think that the more you work in a transparent way where everybody sees what's happening, I think the more it's easier to collaborate. And I love to put some pressure on myself as well. So if I'm putting something on a case that everybody can see, and I say, I'm going to look at this formula that doesn't work, or I'm going to create this dashboard, then it's good for me to be accountable for what I'm doing. And I think it helps others to be accountable. So one thing that I always ask in the team is, where is this saved? Can we put it on a shared document? I want to make sure that everything is transparent and visible. And with regards to the changes that happen during the project, they are crucial. We work with people and we work in a world that changes constantly. We have to adapt to the change. And as in our roles, we are the ones that normally are introducing the change. I think we have to lead by example and show that we have to adapt to changes as quickly as we want our users to do as well.
Christie, can I ask a question to Silvia? I'm curious how she handles this particular.
Go for it, Johann.
Yeah.
I want to. There's so much to learn here from Silvia. I think. Do you use more a pull system or a push system? Like, who is responsible for communicating changes or information?
So I think it's important to understand the culture of the organization I work with, because in our organization we work in we're working for not-for-profit. We don't have time to waste time or to think twice. We have to act fast. So the culture overall of the organization is that we are very free to do whatever we need to do in our work, and we are only pulled in whenever, I wouldn't say there is an issue, but there is a question or somebody is not sure about something. So I think because the culture of the organization is this one, all our projects run like this. So yes, I am responsible for leading the projects. I'm responsible for mapping out the roadmap of Salesforce projects in our organization. But I don't do that in the close in my study, just thinking, okay, what I want to learn about Service Cloud. Let's do that, because I just do it in a very collaborative way and then present to the team. This is what we're planning to do. What do you think?
Silvia, thank you for that. Johann, great question. So I saw a tweet earlier. My buddy James Governor, who goes by the Twitter handle of Monk Chips, and he is a developer analyst at RedMonk, and he was retweeting or sharing a screenshot from a process orchestration software provider called Camunda. Now, I don't know anything about Camunda, and I'm not here to talk about them, but it was quite interesting because Camunda had said that if you have a broken end-to-end automation, you develop a lack of understanding, which leads to a lack of flexibility. I thought that was really interesting because in Salesforce terminology, we talk a lot about technical debt. And I'm just wondering if any of you could share some insight on whether you think poor collaboration in an automation project can in fact lead to technical debt. Johann, can we start with you? Do you have any thoughts there?
Yes, I think one of my pet topics is, again, coming back to the user, to the business analyst, and how important the business analysts are, or let's specifically people like Silvia also, to tell us what really happens out there, because I would say a not well understood business process by me also leads to technical debt, even if the technical implementation is correct, technically speaking. If I didn't understand the process correctly, or the future state, or Silvia's plan in 5 years down the line, there is no, it becomes technical debt even if it's still working.
That's so interesting. I haven't heard anybody say that to me before. It's still technical debt, even if it's working. That is a mind-blowing concept for me. But of course, it makes perfect sense. A lot of things age out, right? Process ages out, as well as in-person process, digital process. So that's really, really interesting. Kurt, how about you? Do you have some thoughts on that subject?
Sure. So I think one of the things that happens very commonly is that let's say we are collaborating with one of our end users and they come up with a thing they want to have implemented or automated, for instance. So when they come up with a request, like a very specific request that I would like a field or an automation to work this way, so that is kind of a collaboration where you might end up doing that thing, but taking the time to understand why we are doing it, asking enough questions to really understand that does it even need to happen, because automation that's not needed could end up becoming a technical debt as well. So taking the time to understand, okay, if this is something that does need this kind of automation in place or not, or is it just that something needs to change in the process that they are following, some kind of process improvement or anything else that needs to change before we do that. So I think shifting the focus really from the solution mindset to first the exploration mindset to really understand whatever we are building and being more intentional about it.
I love that, Kurt. I love the big why. That's what you said in that statement. You said the big why was important. So it's bigger than the why are you doing it that way? It's let's take a step out of the entire situation and come above and try and figure out why we're restrained in the ways that we are, either via our in-person manual process or via our technical process, right? That's so interesting. And Silvia, how about you?
So I'm going to say something that I'm not sure everybody will agree with, but for me is finding the balance between those changes that we, as in our technical roles, are forced to make, And I'm talking about Salesforce has the 3 releases a year. We have to catch up. Some affects us more than others. We are currently in the process of worrying what's going to happen when enhanced domains are going to be enforced, because it affects us a lot. So we've got a community and a lot of things are happening in that community. And then there are changes that we want to make our users happy, to have leaner processes, to save time, to work faster. And I think it's finding the balance between these two can help with technical debt. And I'm not gonna, of course, it's obvious from our point of views today, obviously any change without collaboration, communication, of course, is going to create technical debt.
Right, exactly. I think I just want to emphasize the point that technical debt isn't necessarily a fault, right? It's not a fault that it's happened. It's that the organization grew, or a process changed, or things changed the way that they needed to do things, or they needed to grow in a different area. So I think it's really important that technical debt not necessarily be looked on as a terrible thing, but rather something to be kind of gently pulled apart and reconfigured based on what's happening and what the needs of the business are today versus what they were before. That's how I like to think about it. Because we could all feel saddled, right? We all feel saddled with technical debt, but I know that in some organizations it's incredibly costly. So, all fair credit there. Can we move a little bit to soft skills? Because I feel like soft skills are, I hear about them a lot, and I hear about them a lot, especially in regards to new people entering the ecosystem. A lot of people talk about that. Look, you're on Trailhead and you've earned badges and you've gained certifications, but can you walk into a room and ask questions and hear people and listen? Are you an active listener? You hear all kinds of things like that. So I'm just thinking that maybe we should talk about soft skills a little bit. I think the first question I want to ask, it's quite a whammy. So the first question is, do you need to be a people person to do any of your roles? And I can't wait to hear the answer. So let's start with you first, Johann, because you are a people person.
I wanted to say, no, I would say soft skills. Well, this is a really tough topic because I think this is an opinion here, I think soft skills are important, but not as important as we make them out to be, because I have the feeling we put a lot of pressure on new people entering the community and say you have to have 200 badges and 5 certifications, and by the way, you have to be super friendly, always professionally, always nice, be able to work in multicultural teams across 5 different time zones and 5 different continents, and know every time always how to perfectly react, and all of that, please, in the first 3 months. So I would say soft skills is important, while I think it differs a lot on your career point of view, on your role, where you're currently at. If you are a solo freelancer, a developer who picks up their work on some platforms, I don't know how important soft skills are. It depends a lot where you are in your career. So I want to take to everybody who thinks they don't have enough soft skills, and I think I'm not good enough with soft skills, take away the pressure and say, you're probably enough.
Yeah, Johann, well done. That was beautifully stated. I love that. Thank you for that. Kurit, how about you?
I think I would agree to Johann in some capacity as well, that being a people's person can have several degrees as well. For instance, are you able to hold a communication where you can explain what you're working on, like within internal teams, or being a full-blown out there person, who's engaging with the community or with the customers at end, regarding the projects or anything else in general. And I think when we say that they are important, again, soft skills are so diverse and it can be different for different people. So I think just generalizing it and putting it, in a one bucket might be overwhelming for a lot of people, considering that everybody's mental state is different, everybody's circumstances are different. So we have to be, it is important, but we have to acknowledge that two people that we term as people's person might have a different variation in how they, you know, they do things. So there's no set standard for measuring if I'm a people's person enough or not. Even I can be somebody who goes out all out in 1 month and then disappear for the next 2 months. So it can vary from person to person and situation to situation, I would say. But they are important in some capacity as long as you're comfortable with the setting.
And maybe as well, Kurat, it also could depend on the culture of the team, right? And the culture
That's
that's
correct.
set perhaps by the main stakeholder or project manager. And Silvia, my best people person, I worry about asking you this question because I don't know where we're going to go, but please feel free to elaborate, share your thoughts.
In my role, being a people person is essential. So what I would say is that it depends on your role, how much you have to be a people person. And perhaps as a developer, you can have a little bit, you can have a step back and not have that communications with the end users and with the various stakeholders. But in my role, I am always on the front line, so I have to be. I'm not saying that I'm always, but I think there is one soft skill that we all have to have in all our roles, because we understand that we're all different, and that is trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. So a bit of empathy, I think, is essential for all of us, but for certain roles, it's more important to be the extrovert than the translator.
Well, Silvia, we talked a little bit about this before in our prep calls about how important you, how much emphasis you put on the empathy and how it really helps you in your day-to-day business. And I feel like you're one of those people that tries to impress upon others the value of empathy within your project team, within your business. And I think that's incredibly valuable, but surely you must, it can't work 100% of the time, right? Not everyone is going to be a natural empathetic person, but perhaps they could maybe see some of your success. And if you attribute it to that, maybe they can be inspired.
Oh, what a big responsibility now I have then. But as I said, it depends on your role. And one thing that I'd like to say is that there are, I'm Sicilian. I cannot fake any of my emotions. I wish I could. So you can straight away realize what I'm thinking. And even during a Zoom call, you will see my jaw drop. So I wish I could be, sometimes it would be actually better in my role if I was a bit more of an introvert. So it's finding the right balance in our roles.
So you're saying you're not a good poker player. Okay, everybody take note of that.
Absolutely. No. And that's why I work in a transparent way, because no way I can keep a secret. So don't tell a secret to me.
Well, it's really interesting that you just said that, Silvia, because we've been talking about empathy, but now we're talking about transparency, right? And that's incredibly important as well. But it can also make you quite vulnerable, right? If you're super transparent, and then you're living your full self in that project team, in your workspace, and people just know you. And this happens to me a lot as well. I definitely am very casual. I'm a casual person. And so sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I need to straighten up and, put on a tie and be a little bit more business focused in this particular setting. And it doesn't come naturally to me, but it's something I work on. Johann, how about you? You present beautifully. You look very, like a person I want to fly an airplane, right? And do you feel that how you present yourself in a project team is incredibly critical to how you will be successful or not?
Yes or no. Maybe a story there. This was shortly after I passed my CTA exam. A fellow CTA came up to me and asked me to behave differently because this is not appropriate for a CTA. they say that you're not architect-like enough. I'm like Silvia. People can read my emotions, and I smile, and I use my hands, and I move, and so. And I think I was supposed to be a little bit more stoic, and I think it's important, and I try to behave the right way, like a little bit more poker face, especially when I have enterprise clients and we have a multi-million-dollar project on the line. It's probably not appropriate for me to move in my chair and move my hands all the time, but at the same time, it's impossible to stop my personality and stop completely. So I think it's a balancing act, and I try to become more versatile every day by having more tools in my tool belt, let's call it this way, by being a little bit of a better poker player and seeing how other people do it. And therefore, I mean, today I see so much how Christie, how you moderate, and I will now copy so much of that. So I try to be a little bit more versatile every day, but I'm not gonna stop to use my hands and gesticulate. It's just not gonna happen.
Excellent. Well, I wouldn't want that to stop. Absolutely. Now I want everybody to pay attention because I'm going to ask Kurit to do something for me. Okay, Kurit, don't smile. Stop smiling. Okay, now Kurit, smile. Smile. Come on. I've seen a bigger smile than that. Look, okay, everybody see that? If you saw that happy face on a project team that you worked on, wouldn't you be super excited? But Kurit, do you feel like you have to be kind of very professional in a meeting? Do you feel like you have to, I mean, you're quite a straightforward person, and I see that, and I appreciate that in you. And is that something that you present in your day-to-day life as well as in projects, or are you a little bit more business-like?
I think I am at the moment. I cannot put up what I'm going to save my life, and I think it's really important to be transparent and then be who you are, because when you are working in a team, you don't have to tell other people, be transparent, show empathy. You have to show them first, so they are comfortable enough around you to be transparent, to be, to show empathy to other people as well, because something they cannot see you doing as somebody who's leading the project, or leading the work, there are lesser chances that they would, even if they want to be themselves, then if they're not seeing other people around them having that liberty, they would not sign up for it, and they might have to stay in a poker face. So I think it's really important to be what you want your team to be, to have a comfortable environment, trust within the team. So all of that would happen if you first are coming in from that position.
Yeah. So it's sort of like taking Silvia's focus on empathy, but actually putting it out there so that you're getting back what you are giving out, right? Nadina Lisbon, I love how in our witness success session, she said, yeah, I was working with this person and it was all going fine, and then he chose violence that day. And I loved that she came up with that statement, because she said basically he was really aggressive. He chose to be, and of course she's being a little bit facetious there. He wasn't actually violent, but he chose not to be friendly and forthcoming that day. And it made the project a lot harder on that particular day. And so she did have a conversation with him. And if you've ever met Nadina D. Lisbon, I can tell you, you wouldn't want to be having that conversation. You wouldn't want to be on the receiving end. So thanks for that, everybody. I think soft skills are something that, like many of us have stated here today, they are talked about a lot, but I think you actually can learn a lot just by listening and learning, right? And seeing what's happening around you. Let's go into something that might be a little bit harder to answer. And I don't mean to make it difficult, but I am genuinely curious about this. How do you translate requirements for a different persona other than your own? And I wonder if you have any tips or tricks to share with our audience. Silvia, would you like to start?
Yes, it is a tricky question. We talked about that, yes. So we are, again, the fact that we work in a small organization helps because I get to know how people work, what they like, what they don't like, how they react, how they learn best, how they want to receive information best. So I really think that in our roles, we have to find the right translation tools for the personas that we work with. And of course, normally the admin BA is the one that sometimes is in the middle between different stakeholders. So that's a lot of translating. So if you are translating to back to a purely technical role, then you have your technical hat on. But then if you're translating the other side, then you take off your technical hat on and try and use words that people can understand and that can relate to them.
So you're kind of focusing on terminology there, Silvia, and also kind of how you approach that particular person. Maybe, amping up a particular personality type to be able to talk to that person really effectively. I totally see that. How about you, Johann? Do you have any tips and tricks for our audience?
I can only say what I use. I ask people who are from that persona how they like to be talked to, and then I write that down and I standardize it.
Very open way to do it. That's amazing. Okay, so what kinds of things might they come back with? Is it about how they like to be communicated with? Don't send me a Slack DM, instead tag me in a public channel, or what, does it go beyond that?
It goes far beyond that. So I've had to do that on my architect journey to learn better to communicate up to different levels and different experts. And I did that by interviewing people via LinkedIn, also chatting them up on LinkedIn. And so I learned that CEOs and CTOs care about short sentences and about business value and risk, while on the other hand, technical people care more about details and flow diagrams. And I learned a lot there. And I tried to standardize and learn and improve. So it goes down to which words to use. A lot like Silvia said. Yes, I also focus on terminology, different terminology for different personas.
It's funny that we were talking about terminology, because I gave a presentation on Wednesday and somebody in the audience came up to me later and said, I've never attended a presentation with so many fantastic. And I realized I do analogies a lot. I talk about cars a lot, even though I don't even have. So if you ever hear me sharing an example about a car, you'll know that personality. And Kurt, how about you? Especially a particular persona as a developer, for how you want people to work with you, and also how with people.
Sure. So I think one of the could be a challenge as well at times. So when you are engaging with different personas, to not, I think the first thing that I would try to do is to not assume. So, for example, if I'm talking about a certain concept or a certain thing in Salesforce or outside of it as well, being considerate of the fact that not everybody have the same understanding as me, and I might need to provide more context. So, be first not assuming and being more inclusive when you are having the conversation. So, to simplify things, not to make things complex for everybody to understand. And if there is a chance to, I think just simplifying, not assuming, and then being more inclusive when we are talking about different requirements, different other things that we are working on. And I think I really love what Johann said. Just having a conversation with the personas and then see how they would like to have the information. So I think I had a mental note, and I'll work on that too now.
Also I just am helping a consultancy improve their business processes currently. We had this session currently today where the juniors told the seniors how they like to be communicated with.
And you know what? I think the young people today, that's something that they just sort of get from that's something they're bringing into organizations with them. So we have to respect that and embrace it. Let's keep things new and fresh. Absolutely. Apologies for my little technical blip there. I don't know what happened, but I left and I came back. So here I am. Missed you all. It's nice to be back. So we would love to take any questions from our audience now. Vicki, have you seen any come through?
No, I've been seeing a whole ton of love for all of you in the audience. So everybody is talking about how great the panel is and how great our panelists are. But I haven't seen any questions come in. So if you do have them, stick them in the Q&A section, the session chat, wherever you'd like. I'm looking at it all.
Excellent. Thank you, Vicki. Well, in the meantime, why don't we go to the next slide? I've just got a few things to share with everybody. I want to begin by saying a huge thank you to my incredible panel. I told you they were amazing. I couldn't be more pleased with how this turned out. Thank you all so much for being here and sharing your expertise with our audience. Now, many of you may have seen, if you follow me on social media, that I am celebrating November as Automation Month. It's something I made up all by myself. And it's a Christie thing, and it's going really well. There's so much goodness out there to celebrate and to share with people about Automation Month. So if you follow me on Twitter, Fidura UK, or LinkedIn, or on the Salesforce Developers Trailblazer community on that digital platform, you will see my posts. I recommend that you check out some of the resources that I'm sharing there, keynotes or presentations, webinars, all different kinds of things. And in final celebration at the end of the month, I'm actually dedicating my monthly Salesforce Developers Ask Me Anything session to the subject of automation, but this time automation with Flow and Apex. I've assembled two of our product experts, product managers at Salesforce, Antoine and Chris, and they are going to be presenting on this particular activity, and they are fantastic. So you can come along, bring any question that you have about automation with Flow and Apex, and they will answer that. Or for the first time ever, we're allowing you to upload your question via video mail. Again, a word I made up all by myself. So take a little shot of you on your mobile phone, walking along or just sitting at your desk and asking the question that you would like. And our experts will be playing your question live during the session and answering that. So this is your chance for a global facing activity. We'd love to have you. Please do submit. You can go straight to the submit site, which is just a Google form giving you tips and tricks about how to submit a good video. And I'd love to see all of you on there. Thank you so much. Vicki, next slide, please. So not only are we happy to talk to you all here today in person, but we have assembled and collated some really nice resources for you. Everybody on the panel has contributed, along with previous contributions from Melissa Hildees and Nadina Lisbon and Mike Reynolds. So this site is growing a little bit, and I just want to give a massive shout out to Melissa Hildees. Thank you, Melissa, for hosting particular site as a resource for our community. You're all welcome to go there using the QR code or the URL that I've provided and see the resources that we've put together for you so that you can also achieve perfect collaboration and communication within your project. And we look forward to any feedback that you might have, but please do give Melissa a shout out on social if you can, because she has built this for us and is hosting it. And then finally, I just want to say thank you so much, everybody, for being here with us. And we'd love for you to stay in touch with us. My handles are there for our official channels for Salesforce developers, but also you can always find me in the dev community on the Trailblazer Community Digital Platform. And we've got 12,000 developers there now who are sharing and collaborating and helping one another. So if you want to join our wonderful group, we'd love to have you. And I promise to give you a warm welcome when you get there. Vicki and Mark, thank you so much for having all of us. Look at these amazing faces. It's been such a pleasure, such an honor. And thank you all very much. Have a great time.
Oh, thank you so much. So a huge round of applause for all of you. You were excellent, and we had so much fun. I think this chat alone is just an attestation to how much everybody learned and took away from this panel today. So you're all awesome. And Mark, are you going to join me back on stage? So I've thrown the link into the chat for everybody. Thank you so much, Melissa Hildiz, for sharing that site with us. It's great to have all of these resources and all of these really, I'd say, concrete takeaways that people can leave automation dreaming with. And now I'm going to do a little bit of a switch here. So nothing like some virtual setting to do the good old switcheroo. And we're going to start to wrap things up already. So it has been an amazing 2 days. Mark and I were joking earlier today that we put on basically an event of all of the content and all of these amazing speakers that we wanted to see. And we've just invited everybody else along to it. So we have been enjoying ourselves so much, and we hope everybody else has been too. And I am looking in. Okay, so I'm getting some questions in here. Before I let the panelists go here, a couple of questions. What are your favorite tools for collaborating on automation?
Silvia, do you have any suggestions?
I think that we should not think of the most incredible, difficult tools that you have to pay thousands of pounds for. Look at what you've got. Everybody's got access to Google Docs, for example. Of course, Jira is a great tool. But I also think that a way to collaborate and communicate is to document within the org. As much as you can put within the org will help everybody see what's going on.
Fabulous. Johann, any further details there?
No, I couldn't add more to Silvia. Take whatever I've seen all types of collaboration tools, and my takeaway is take whatever you have currently and try to use it as much as possible. Thanks, Silvia.
Awesome. Correct. Anything to add? Oh, you're on mute, correct.
I was just saying the same thing. Keep what you really need, and we generally document within the org, so everything is in the same place, and we don't have to do hide and seek everywhere to find stuff.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you. Vicky, anything else?
Yeah, we actually have a couple questions here, so we'll see how many we get through. Especially, what do you use to document automations? Anybody have some useful tools there?
Johann, do you want to start?
Yes, because I have a very strong opinion there. It has to be PowerPoint. If it's too complex to fit on a PowerPoint slide, it's too no. If it doesn't fit on a PowerPoint slide, it's too complex and it has to be broken up. No communication will ever fit. We're coming back to every target persona. Therefore, every automation I document it differently for different personas. So mistakes I made too often, I try to create one documentation for all personas, which never worked. So I started to create one documentation for my business users, one documentation for my developers, one documentation for my admins, one documentation for my CTO, different documentation for each one. And this made it so much easier. It's actually faster because I don't have to try to fit everything into one documentation. I don't know if anybody else does it this way. Maybe I'm the weird one here. Okay.
Yeah, I think we're all learning there. Everybody's just soaking it in. Oh, that's interesting.
I was curious to see what other people's experience is with having complex documentation across different personas.
Yeah, Silvia, do you have anything there?
No, I'm going to steal these two ideas, actually. So from tomorrow, we're going to use PowerPoint to document, automation. It's actually a discussion we've had earlier this week. We can document a lot of things within the org, but we are struggling to document in a meaningful way automation. So I'm sorry, I don't have anything amazing to add. I'm just going to steal.
Great. Yeah, we're all learning, like Vicky said. Corinne, anything from you?
I think the simplest thing I would say is just populate descriptions before you forget things, and then you can go on and document them more sophisticatedly. But when you're building things out, having a change log or some kind of information about what this is for would be really helpful for you, and even whoever comes after you, they'll be happy that you left something for them.
Sylvia and I saw a tweet today, and Sylvia actually shared it, and it was, I don't know who it was from, but it said, for anyone who's starting off as a Salesforce person, I think they specified admin, but it's true for everyone. Don't think that you're going to remember it, write it down. You won't remember it, write it down. You won't remember it, write it. It just repeated it like 3 or 4 times. You won't remember it, write it down. I think that is so true. Vicki, do you want to have time for one more, or do we need to wrap?
Yeah, there's one that's just too good not to ask. So what's everybody's best approach to saying no to stakeholders? Because sometimes we have to say that.
Sylvia, let's start with you.
I think I don't do it on purpose. I've just realized that I do that. And is the if you ask the whys and you sit down with your users and you really unpick what's going on, I think the best way is for them to get to the point where they say, no, it's not worth it.
A little reverse psychology there.
Yes.
I like that. Very good. How about you, Kurat? How do you say no?
I think I'd say the same thing. If somebody's coming up with a pain need a solution for, saying no right away might not sit that well. So taking the time to talk to them, understand the process, show them the alternatives, and then, as Silvia said, let them say no themselves.
This is really... And Johann, do you want to give us our final answer before we hand back to Vicki?
I have the nice to have pile where I put it. So instead of saying no, I try to say this is a great idea. We definitely go to it as soon as we have budget available.
Awesome.
Always is the next quarter, never this quarter.
Great answers all around. So yeah, that one was definitely the right question to end with. So thank you for asking. I think it was Andrew Russo for bringing that one to the panel. And thanks again for all of your amazing answers. So I think we're all going to be stealing things from each other.
Absolutely.
Cool. So we're going to start to wrap things up then, because we only have a couple of minutes left. And to be perfectly transparent, Mark and I aren't sure if we're going to get kicked out of the bevy room or not at the end of this. So we'll make sure to get everything in here. So thank you so much, everybody, for attending our very first ever Automation Dreaming. I don't think we could have imagined it going any better. So we have to say a big thank you to all of our volunteers. So this is the Automation Dreaming crew that you might have seen around. You've probably seen them introducing speakers, answering questions, and we wouldn't have been able to run an event like this without them. So they have been there making sure that that record button is hit. That's one of the ones where we had I think we had the same tweet shared on our internal Slack channel with all of the volunteers. And they said, well, let's replace this documentation with press record, press record, press record. So yeah, it's going around. And they have moved to press record on every single session and have been so supportive of our speakers. So a huge round of applause again for everybody who's here. Do take a screenshot. We'll be sharing this afterwards as well. So connect with them on LinkedIn. There's some amazing individuals here. And then if you've caught the learning bug and want to learn more, we want to just give some shout outs to some really awesome organizations that are doing so much good out there, putting so much learning out into the Salesforce space. So we've got ones like Pep Up Tech, Marivis, especially Marivis today being Remembrance Day. They're doing awesome work with veterans and bringing them into the Salesforce space. We've mentioned a couple of different times throughout the event, Rad Women Code, bringing women into the developer space, and it's so important. And then we've got Ladies Be Architects, who is currently doing a lifecycle and development study session and just keeps bringing amazing content out there. So go check them out on YouTube. That's one of my go-to sources to start. And then there's a new one coming out. So Scale Up Arcs is going to be run by Melissa Shepard, CTA herself. And this is going to be launched in around January, February time. So a bunch of us, Nadina included, actually, who was mentioned here earlier, are putting some work together to get this one going. And we will be announcing this shortly. So I will tweet out afterwards from our Automation Dreaming handle the link for the form for anybody who's interested. There'll be a kind of beta, I'd say, for our very first one. And then Mark, let me hand it over to you because I know you have some wrap-up housekeeping for us too.
Yeah, thanks, Vicky. Thanks again to all of our panelists and all of our volunteers and amazing speakers. None of this would happen without any of you here at all. So we really do appreciate that. And it's a bit of a dream come true to run this event. In terms of wrapping up, we probably won't get kicked off a bevy, but we will keep to time. Just quick housekeeping, we do actually have 6 certification vouchers to give away for attendees at the conference. So to make our life a little bit easier, because we've got less than 50 people here and we've had almost 400 across the last couple of days, we're going to do the drawing for that offline, and we're going to pull that from basically attendees who have checked in. So keep an eye out on emails and all of that, because you will be getting, the lucky winners will get an email from the Trailblazer community team to let you know that you've won a certification voucher. And those will be equal to the value of either a $200 or $400 exam. You can take it any time for up to a full calendar year, I believe. Other than that, we just want to say again a big, huge thank you. And I don't think I've missed anything else that we needed to mention that we aren't going to handle offline.
No, just thank you to our amazing speakers as well. So we didn't have the space to put everybody on a slide because we had so many people here, but we have, I think I counted 34 people or 34 sessions. Some did some repeats there, and they've been sharing amazing content over the past 3 days. We've had people from all different continents all around the world, so it's really cool to see this virtual event coming together because it's just putting so much knowledge out there. And to answer the very last question, I'm sure we're getting in the chat, we will be recording everything and putting it up on YouTube. So to keep on watching the Twitter handle, we have a company page for Automation Dreaming on LinkedIn as well. And keep your eye out there. We'll be making a ton of announcements as it comes. So thanks everybody for attending. We'll sign off with that. Nice bye for everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm seeing next year already. Absolutely. I think we've had too much fun here.
Yeah. I think we will be having a follow-up conversation. Not tonight, but sometime soon we'll decide on what we're doing for a future event.
Somebody mentioned this thing called sleep, and we're going to try it out. We found that it's overrated so far, but we figured, why not? We've got nothing better to do. Let's give it a try.
Kathy says tomorrow's good.
Yeah, tomorrow's good. Yeah, we'll get on it, Kathy.